Hi there, I'm Michael Hill with Canine Chronicle TV, and I'm excited to be here today virtually with a well-known, longtime dog person, Peggy Beisel-McIlwaine, and her kennel name is Fox Aaron for Wire Fox Terriers and Cairn Terriers. And Peggy, you've been involved in the sport for a good long while now, and you've been involved with some of the most influential people in the sport, right? Like George Ward and the likes of that. Tell us what it was like when you first got started in the sport.
Well, I started following a couple that bred Old English sheepdogs while I was in high school. And once I got out of high school, I bought my first show dog, Sadie, an Old English sheepdog from the Oshevskis of Withee, Wisconsin. And started going to shows and met some wonderful people along the way. This was back in early 1970s. Sadie was born in 74 and May 20th, 1974. It's those kind of dates you don't forget.
Yeah.
But so I went to the shows, and there was a couple, Bob and Mary Eldridge, who kind of took me under their wing because the people that bred the Sadie couldn't go to the shows anymore because they had kids. And so I was always one of the first ones under the grooming tent grooming, and Bob and Mary kind of took me under their wings and kind of showed me some of the ropes. And Bob was a handler, showed mostly sporting dogs. And I remember hiring him once to show Sadie, and I said, that will never happen again. I have to show my own. I'm a control freak. Just ask my husband.
Right.
So anyway, I finished her championship both in Canada and in the US, and wanted to learn more about dogs and the proper care, because I fully intended on being an Old English sheepdog breeder. Wow. And I went to work for Connie Miller now, and would help her on weekends. I was attending the University of Wisconsin Green Bay, and I was working a couple of different jobs, part-time jobs, and started working for Connie on weekends, and met George Ward at a show in Wisconsin, and he was looking for an assistant, and I had applied to a couple handlers for jobs, but none of them really sounded right for me. And I went to visit George's place, and it was immaculate, and started working for him that summer of 77. Yeah, 77. And realized my love for terriers. As soon as I walked in, and met him, I just loved Wire Fox Terriers. And I remember wanting one as a younger person, but my mother said no, because apparently she had one as a youngster, and it was crazy. So I got my Wire from George as a Christmas present, a Dominator daughter. And she finished real fast, and met my husband while working for George.
Really?
Sandy had a lovely little Cairn bitch whose mouth kind of went off, and he was having a hard time finishing her, and he hired George to finish her. So that's where we met. So he was a client of George's, yes.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so he's a dog person, and we started dating a little bit, but I quit working for George's in May of 1980, kind of the same day that Mount St. Helens erupted.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Things erupted in Constantine, Michigan as well. So,
life erupted.
Yeah, and Sandy and I married in December of 1980, and started our Fox Aaron kennels. He had Cairns and Scotties. He'd been involved in Cairns since 1967. And he's a bit older than me, so he's been around a lot longer. But we decided we were only going to breed the two breeds, and we always had a Scottie, because we had to always have a Scottie, but we weren't going to breed Scotties. So that's where the Fox Aaron comes from.
Oh, I love that. And so then, did you go out on your own as a professional handler after George?
I did, and I did. When I started working for George, I just wanted to learn more about proper care of dogs and stuff, but I realized that was going to be an occupation for me. I loved it. George was encouraging while I worked for him. He wasn't when I quit, but so that it worked out really well. We built our kennel, And clients started coming in, and I was not a Bill McFadden or Gabriel, but I did a fair share of winning, especially with the class stuff, and made some good money.
And you were able to do what you loved, and then
Correct.
you had children enter the picture soon, right?
I did, and yes, I have 3 boys. They're all in their 30s now, and they at first they would go with me. My husband would go with me, and we did this together. But as the kids got older, my husband stayed home. He was a stay-at-home dad. I always say he's the original Mr. Mom.
I love that.
And he, he managed the kennel while I was on the road, and obviously the kids. And as the kids got older, my oldest Pat, when he got into middle school and the sports and everything, and it was time for me to quit being on the road. I wanted to be at school. I wanted to attend their water polo games and swim meets, and I volunteered a lot at the school. So,
seasons of life, right?
Right. So in '96, I quit handling and applied for my judge's license. And I got the Terrier group in junior showmanship. So I was very fortunate to be able to get a whole group right away. And it worked out well because I didn't get a lot of assignments, just having the Terrier group, but I didn't want to be gone. And there were certain weekends I wasn't going to accept, like when the water polo championships or swim championships were. So I wanted to be there for the kids. And I love that. I miss that part of them.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it goes by so fast, I'm sure.
It does. I mean,
there will always be dog shows.
I think I spent more time in their high school than I did in my own.
Oh, I love that. Did they ever get involved in showing or do junior showmanship or anything like that?
My eldest would go with me to some shows, and he helped. He did show in junior showmanship, but they showed Karen's, and back then, that was before Mary Beth really reorganized it. She's done such a fabulous job with junior showmanship. And I've made the kids show a Karen like a Karen should be shown. And of course, they didn't do real well. My youngest, Ian, never really did show. I think Trevor showed once, and a St. Bernard was shook his head, and a big wad of spit came on the dog's
he was like,
was like, get it on! I don't think he showed too much. But Pat went with me because of being the oldest, but he went with me to Montgomery one year. I took Tin Man as a veteran, and he was pretty cute because he said, "Mom, I really think he's going to win. I really have a good feeling." And of course he did. He won the breed from the veterans class.
Oh,
and he was always.
So he has an eye for dogs too.
Yes, and he was the one that made me try sushi. The place where the Karens had the host hotel had a sushi restaurant, and he was an adventurous child eating wise. And we went and had sushi with Betty Hyslop and everybody. It was so fun. I was like, man, this is good. And now I love sushi.
I love it too. I could not live without it. That is so funny. So I'm interested to hear your thoughts, especially now, because you are at shows still all the time as a judge. But do you feel like the sport is set up to be family friendly? Is there anything you think that we could do to make it easier for families with kids to be able to be involved in dogs at the same time?
Oh, I think it's pretty I mean, it's not easy for handlers that have kids because they have to take care of 15 or however many dogs at a show, and they get there early and they leave late. But if you're a one breed family, and I could see us going to a show and then, showing our dog and leaving and going and seeing some of the sights, I think it's very possible. Yeah, very possible.
And I think it's interesting because, especially for the younger kids I see at the show, they get to be very comfortable meeting and knowing people from all different walks of life that they wouldn't run into at preschool.
Right. And ages. Our kids were always very sociable.
It's like socialization for kids and dogs.
They, when they were babies and they were going, they'd be passed off to somebody to hold while I was in the ring. So,
Right. So okay, we're going with it.
Right.
I love that. Well, and so now you've been heavily involved as a judge. You've had some amazing assignments, like the group at Westminster, Best in Show at Montgomery. What did you see yourself being a judge when you were younger and getting involved in the sport? Was that something you always wanted to do, or has it kind of become a grown love?
Oh, it just became so, what's the word I'm looking for? Just kind of something that happened. No, I never
Yeah.
intended, just like I never intended to become a professional handler. I went, like I said, to work for George just to learn more
Mm.
about proper care of dogs and breeding. And then
Yeah.
that led to professional handling. And then, that led to me retiring because I wanted to stay home. And the next step seemed to be judging.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it has worked out. I've been very blessed with some really incredible assignments.
Mm. Were there any other judges who were impactful mentors on how you run your ring?
Oh, absolutely. Steve Shaw,
Mm.
who's always very professional. Mike Billings, Annie Clark, all those good ones that
Greats.
I miss
Yeah.
so much. Yeah, I miss, and they were all very, very helpful too. They really took me under their wing. I remember Annie, I was actually just doing a sweepstakes at Canfield, and I came into the lunchroom, and I kind of must have looked like a deer in the headlights. And she said, "Come on, sweetheart, you're going to sit right here because they wait on you now."
The
Pretty
tables
sweet.
have turned.
Yeah.
I love that. And you still show your dogs occasionally yourself, right?
Yep. Yes, I do. Just mainly at the Bull Terrier Specialties, and only on occasion.
Yeah.
We've got our big national coming up, and it's I've got them entered. I've got our old girl who's I brought with me. She's in the house because she wouldn't shut up. She was
She
so
says,
excited
I
to
should
go
be the
for a ride in
focus.
the car. But she's entered in veteran sweeps, and then we've got our boy entered in this variety.
I love that. I
Yeah.
remember hearing a story, I don't know where it was exactly, about you won maybe winner's dog at Montgomery and went to ask for a win photo right after winner's dogs.
That was at Hatboro. It
Oh,
was
Hatboro, yeah.
Yeah, I was so stupid. He finished the day, and she's handing me the winner's dog ribbon. I said, "Oh, can we get a picture?" And she said it was Teresa's fur. She said, "I have to finish judging first." Diana Hahn was there, and she thought that was hysterical. She let everybody know about it.
Yep, keeps you grounded, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
What are your thoughts on the state of judging nowadays? Do you think it's in a good place? Is there anything that you would maybe recommend to prospective judges or new judges on how to learn new breeds and to do their job well?
That's a loaded question.
I
Um, I think we have some very good judges. I do get discouraged when I hear people wanting to get more breeds so they get more assignments. I think that's the wrong attitude. But generally, I think the educational things out there are plentiful, and if people really want to learn, they can. Um, I think it's in fairly good shape. I'm one of the nice things about the pandemic, if there can be anything nice about it, is that we don't have multiple shows on the weekends, so we're getting some quality dogs. I think over the years, in the last, decade or so, you can finish almost anything, and it's not fun to judge just mediocre dogs. Back in the 70s and 80s, everybody went to the Chicago International. Everybody went to Eastern Dog Club. Oh, there go the bees.
Right.
Everybody went to Detroit Kennel Club. So you saw all of good dogs. And in order to win, you had to breed good dogs. And I think the quality has diminished because of the quantity of shows. And it's really diluted the quality. But I think
Right.
with this, I mean, everybody's going to shows. I mean, the entries have been huge. The best in show lineups have been Westminster quality. So
Yeah.
I think it's bound to help a little.
Sure.
I don't want these clubs to suffer and fold, but it might be a benefit for our quality of our dogs.
Even if they maybe condensed or joined together instead of being separate clubs,
Correct.
pooled resources and events.
When you have shows that are literally 201 miles away from each other on the same weekend, I think it's a shame.
Yeah, absolutely. How has your experience of judging been since coming back to it in the pandemic?
I haven't had any problem.
Yeah.
I think, everywhere I've been, everybody's wearing their masks, everybody's social distancing. I think if you don't want to go to a show, if you're afraid, you should stay home.
Absolutely.
And stop complaining about those of us who want to go. I think that's sad that people are turning clubs in that are trying to make a go of it. And these clubs are working real hard. And sometimes they had to alter things and lower the entry or change the way you enter. Or sometimes they're canceling. I mean, I can't even count how many shows canceled on this. My calendar is a mess.
Oh, so, I can imagine. It's throwing a lot of people for a loop, that's for sure.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's been a real challenge, but I've enjoyed it. I've had 4 or 5 weekends in a row now, and so I'm happy.
Make and do. Now, especially with all this free time in the pandemic, I'm always interested to know how people are spending it. I think it's a great time for people to find out something like a hobby or interest that you might have that they might not know about you. Anything come to mind?
Oh, well, I did a lot. I ate a lot. I baked a lot. I ate what I baked. I love baking. And normally, now I don't bake so much because the kids are all gone. But when I would bake like the day before I leave. And but this time I didn't leave, so I was eating it. So clothes aren't fitting like I'd like. But I also clean. I mean, the house has never been cleaner. I've cleaned every pantry out, every closet, every drawer. I mean, everything's very organized, and amazingly, my husband was keeping it organized.
It's definitely testing some relationships and making other ones stronger, that's for sure.
And I'm learning more and more about gardening. I love working out in the yard.
Awesome.
I'm a complete novice.
Yeah.
I'm learning, and of course we have the birds that most people know about my craziness with birds, and Ken McDermott is my go-to guy for birding.
I love that. Well, and I think it's interesting to find out those other things that dog people do other than dogs.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much for sharing your experience in dogs with us, Peggy. I think it's really great to see that something that's a passion can become not only an occupation, but something that creates friendships and relationships that have lasted for decades, and something that still keeps you interested and going today.
And from all over the world, I have met some truly amazing people.
That is amazing. All because of dogs, right?
All because of dogs. Who would have ever guessed? I mean, I would have never gone to places where I've gone. I mean, I've been to Europe, I've been to South America, I've been to the Philippines, Australia, China. I mean, I would have never been able to do any of that if it weren't for dogs.
How amazing. Let's round out with your, off the top of your head, the most memorable judging experience in your career.
Well, judging for a terrier snob like me, judging Montgomery County in 2010. Actually, it was 10-10-10. That was probably the ultimate. And of course, doing the 2 groups at the garden. Even my first assignment at the garden, when I got that letter, was pretty, unbelievable. So that was pretty great. And anytime I go overseas, it's been really fun because I get to see other parts of the world and meet wonderful people.
And there's some amazing dogs in other countries too.
Yes, there are. Definitely.
I love that. Well, hopefully things will somewhat resume normalcy in the near future, and we'll be able to do international travel again.
I'd like to go to Montgomery County again.
That would be wonderful. That would have been just now, right?
Yes, it would have been this last weekend. My first trip there was when I worked for George, was in '78, and then I started going in '81 as a handler and never missed until this year. It's not a show I plan on ever missing. No.
Hopefully next year.
Yes.
That is great. Well, thank you again so much for your time, Peggy. It was an absolute pleasure from everyone at Canine Chronicle TV.
Well, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
You are very welcome.
Bye-bye.